Okay, today I'm going to give you an analysis of the overall 6 months period of 2017 and some of the things that have happened in this first half of this year. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is something that seems to be slipping under the radar, but is extremely dangerous not only to the United States but to the rest of the world. And starting off in an article from Stratfor, it's called Straying from the Warpath. It's talking about the ongoing war of words between the United States and North Korea. As many of you know, North Korea is trying to continue to test missiles in order for them to perfect a delivery system that will ultimately reach the continental United States. Well, so far in this Korean War U.S. standoff, it's only been a war of words, but some in the global intelligence world believe that if the United States were to perform a surgical strike on one of North Korea's nuclear and missile facilities, that would probably put the fear of God in North Korea. And if you remember correctly, back a couple months ago, that's exactly what they did with Syria. And that message at the same time was to send warning to North Korea that they could be next. North Korea and the United States appear to be well past the point of compromise. North Korea feels that its security hinges on a deterrent that would make Washington think twice about trying to overthrow North Korea's leadership or launching military action against the country. Washington, meanwhile, can't afford North Korea's efforts to develop a reliable nuclear weapon and delivery system that could strike the continental U.S. Having nearly attained its security goal, North Korea can't delay further missile tests without giving the United States time to build national and international political support for military intervention. The United States similarly can't stop at a moratorium on North Korea's missile tests, since only a few steps separate North Korea from long-range weapons capability. Despite the constraints and compulsions it creates, a country's geography can't eliminate every possible option. For all their differences, the United States and North Korea, perhaps ironically, share the same goal, avoiding a war. But each sees the other's path as unattainable for its own national security. A war between the United States and North Korea is not inevitable, but it is growing increasingly likely, and not because their leaders are crazy. So as Stratfor does state, they do believe that even though war between the U.S. and North Korea is not around the corner, it's very possible that it could take place. This is an event that has somewhat flown between under the radar, although not completely ignored. It could prove to be even bigger than Syria or any other Middle East hotbed. So this is something I definitely would recommend that you keep your eye on to see exactly what's going to happen in the future. I do believe at some point in time, of course, during the tribulation period, if not before, that the U.S. may have to strike North Korea and strike them hard. Now, whether or not that will be what will be a catalyst for what the Bible calls a world war in Revelation chapter 6. We do know, though, that after the second seal is broken, that world war does break out. And this could be a hotbed for conflict in the very near future. Now on to talking about U.S. President Donald Trump's progress thus far in his presidency. Certainly much of what he would like to do has been stalled by an uncooperative Congress and Senate as well. If you were to listen to the liberal press, and that's exactly what the press wants you to do, they would think that, they would have you believe anyway, that President Trump has accomplished nothing in his first 6 months in the White House. But the truth of the matter is that the stock market has never been higher. Unemployment has never been lower. And I just read an article coming out of the Drudge Report that manufacturing, the coal industry, are in the middle of a boom right now. But the liberal press would have you think that nothing is being done and there are no successes under this administration, when that couldn't be further from the truth. And there's one thing that us Christians should remember, and that is President Donald Trump has appointed a conservative Supreme Court justice. and has the opportunity, possibly, of doing it, of electing a second Supreme Court justice when Justice Kennedy steps down, and they're believing that's going to be in the very near future. So frankly, that is something that I consider to be a very big win for conservatives and for Christians. Let's face it, Donald Trump may be in office for 4 to 8 years, but a conservative Supreme Court justice will be in office for decades. So these are the things that you should be looking at as a Christian, not about building a wall or repealing the Obamacare legislation, although that at some point in time probably will be repealed. But the fact of the matter is, if it was easy to repeal and to replace, it would have already been done. So anything that the Trump administration comes up with isn't going to be that much different than what Obama's already got in place. Oh, and by the way, Obamacare is still the law of the land and probably will be for the foreseeable future. Now on to the second part of what I wanted to say about President Trump. It has always been my belief that anyone who breaks the law needs to pay the price. If in fact President Trump has broken the law, the powers that be that are in charge right now will indeed prosecute him. But at this time, it's nothing more than a bunch of smoking mirrors and a tremendous amount of hearsay. I fully expect when this is all over that Mr. Trump will be exonerated, but in fact, if that's not the case, then his second in command, Mike Pence, will step in and take the office of the president. And frankly, I find it very curious that most people who are trying to convict Mr. Trump in the world of public opinion dislike Mike Pence even more. And it's not because he is a corrupt leader, but because he's a conservative who has biblical principles. So frankly, I don't know what the liberals are trying to accomplish, because if Trump is at some point in time, which I don't believe he will, but at some point in time, if in fact he is removed from office, he will be replaced with their worst nightmare. And if there's one thing I found out in this election year is that you simply can't talk to a liberal media or public. Case in point being 6 months into a presidency that was clearly won in a Democratic election, the liberal media and community still can't accept it and continue to fight. So frankly, my takeaway from all this is that liberals will be liberals, and that's not going to change. We simply have to continue to stand on the principles of the Bible and what the Lord intended our leadership to be. Now certainly Donald Trump is not a saint. He's not going to be a pastor. But as far as I can see, he is doing exactly what he needs to do to move this country forward and in the right direction, including his support for Israel. And let's move on to Israel now. That's the next thing that we need to address. As many of you know, right now the Temple Mount is on somewhat of a lockdown. In fact, the Israeli government has placed metal detectors on the Temple Mount because the Palestinians have been smuggling weapons onto the compound. And as we know, several policemen and others have been murdered because of this violent act by the Palestinians has been taking place. So the Israeli government has now ordered everyone who is coming on to pray at the mosque must go through a metal detector. Well, of course, all the Hamas and Fatah, Jordan, and a few others have said, you know what, we will not pass through metal detectors. Meaning really that, hey, listen, we're going to bring guns onto the Temple Mount and we're going to kill Israelis. And of course the liberal press is eating this up and condemning Israel for placing such restrictions on the Temple Mount. And of course, if this happened in any other part of the world, nobody would think twice about putting metal detectors in a school, in a church, or whatever the case may be, if it was anywhere else. In fact, they would consider that common sense. But the fact that it's Israel who is asking that this be done, and, well, I should say demanding that this be done, certainly they have a double standard when it comes to Israel. But this has put a damper on the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks and also peace between the moderate Arab world. And this is one of those moments in which I say, well, you know what, it's not over until it's over. There's always something out there that seems to put a wrench in what we thought would consider a very promising peace scenario, but in fact is beginning to blow up as we speak. Hopefully what is going on behind the scenes is more promising than what's being played out in real life. But what is going to happen in the second half of 2017? Well, it'll be interesting to see if, in fact, the planned Middle East meeting between Israel, the Palestinians, the moderate Arab states, and the United States will take place in September. That meeting, if it in fact does take place, will be the telltale sign as to whether this peace process with the United States is in fact dead or not. You know, the Bible has states in Daniel 9:27 that it will be a man who will come out of the European Union that will bring peace to Israel. But right now, the peace process is in the hands of the United States. Even though newly elected President of France, Macron, has said that he has a peace proposal that he would like to present. So I'm going to be interested to see what he has to say and what his peace proposal is and how he intends to enforce it. So for you prophecy watchers, I would keep my eyes on what happens in the September meeting and how the French and Mr. Macron, how he, in fact, he does play a part in this process. And you know, I get questions from time to time, why do I key so much upon the Middle East and what's happening in Israel? Well, because that is exactly how the tribulation period will begin. You know, you can dream up all the fantasy prophecy that you want, but the bottom line is that the tribulation period does not begin without a peace that is confirmed in the Middle East. And it will be between Israel, the Antichrist, and many. So whatever one may dream up, it's all going to have to come back to one thing, and that is peace in the Middle East with Israel and many. And if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. You know, 150,000 people will die today. The Bible says that the vast majority of them will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. You need to ask the Lord to save you, and you need to do it quickly. And you Christians, you need to get a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. I have two versions of it. One is a free version, which is written in 9 different languages. You can go down to the description section, and you can find out where you need to go in order to pick up one of those downloadable versions. Secondly, I have a paperback English version, which you can purchase, and you can personally put it in the hands of your lost loved ones so that they do have this book when the tribulation period does begin. Let's face it, we don't want the world to tell our lost friends and loved ones what to do when the tribulation period starts. We want them to have the information that they need to have when this time period begins. You know, I fully believe that whoever I give this book to, they will not accept the Antichrist and his mark when the time comes. I feel that strongly that this book can help them. So if I were you, I'd get a copy, get multiple copies, give it to your lost friends and loved ones. Give it to them so they'll have this book when the time does come. We know that our time is short. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.